All right, now I want to get into some things that we call brain tricks. These are also called cognitive biases. There's some wonderful books on the topic. If any of these excite you, I highly recommend the book, The Undoing Project, which is the far more exciting version of Thinking Fast and Slow. And it really gets into these little things that are happening in our lives that cause us to shut down, that cause us to not make good decisions or to be unhelpful. So one of the things I love about remote work is that everyone controls their own thermostat. What we find is that when people are too hot or too cold, they tend to resort to their default answer, which for most people is no. So we want people to be at a comfortable temperature, right? If you're going to meet with a client or a potential new client, you better make sure you're not in a freezing cold room or a very hot room. They're not going to listen. Their brain is subconsciously worried about temperature. If the person is hungry, they also will tell you no. So don't call a meeting at 11:30, right before everyone goes to lunch, where you expect them to tell you what they really think and to come to some big agreement. If you have to have an 11:30 meeting, then you better have, hey, everyone, let's do pizza together. Let's do bagel on that. Let's have them meet right after lunch, right? Now they're full. This is why when we have meetings like with clients and we take them out to dinner or out to lunch, we get all this incredible amount of agreements and all these things happen. That why for 2 weeks have I been chasing you, but I take you to dinner and you sign the contract? It's because they're not hungry. Their brains can actually focus on what they need to focus on because they're not worried about temperature or they're not worried about the food. So if you don't want people to shove their fingers in their ears and close their eyes and not listen to you, you have to think about the environmental factors about having effective meetings. The next one we want to do is think about group thought. So this is another area for the brain tricks that we need to be aware of. We want to ask people, and this is a little counterintuitive, so I remind my people on a regular basis, especially if we're thinking about something new or new project, I want them to come to their own conclusions before considering those of others. We often say we want everyone to be open and not make up their minds yet. And I think that's wrong. I think it's inherently wrong. Because what you end up doing is saying, don't make an opinion, right? Go along with what everyone else's opinion is. Because if you haven't made up your mind yet and you hear 4 people say that's the right way to go, you go, well, I guess they know what they're doing. They're smart people. I guess we'll go with it. Instead, I want everyone to hear what's happening, evaluate the factors, and decide what they think is best. Then move into, now let me consider your ideas, let me consider your perspectives, test that against my own, and then we can decide what we think is best. If you don't feel comfortable disagreeing, some of the tricks that I like to help people, I mentioned if Susie is not talking in a particular meeting, but Tom is talking too much, right? It's often because maybe they disagree and they don't know how to disagree inside that context. So we can ask for permission to disagree. Hey, everyone, would it be okay? I know like a lot of you really seem to want to go with Salesforce, but would it be okay if I disagree with you for a minute? And usually people go, sure, we'd love to hear what you have to say. And it puts them in that mindset of, okay, I'm going to listen to something new. I'm going to consider a different opinion. I think we could go to Zoho. That might be a little different, it's a different way to think about it. And if that won't work, then, or maybe you have a really difficult group you're working with who are, super opinionated or totally believe that they are 100% right, and you still think, I don't know if they're right. You can ask, what if, or what else would we do? If you're feeling pressured to agree to something you don't agree with, say, hey, I'm sure you guys are right. You totally know Salesforce is the way to go, but what if we didn't go with them? What else could we consider? And they will naturally say, well, we could do this, we could do that. Okay, well, why is that one not as good as what you're suggesting? And you immediately pierce into that conversation without saying, hey, you're an idiot, we should never go with that program, right? Or I think you're wrong, and having a fight with somebody. Or just worst case, giving in because that's what the group wants to do. Another thing we want to do is find ways to say yes. I would say probably one of the most important things that I learned was the power of saying yes. I read a book. I actually heard my wife listening to a book called The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. I'm not a huge fan of her TV shows, the Grey's Anatomies and all that stuff, but fantastic book. And she talked about the shift in her entire life when she began saying yes to things. And I thought that was interesting. I wonder if I could do that. So I decided for the entire year of 2017, I was going to say yes to everything. Yes, and yes, but, right? Give you a little cushion in there to help you out, get out. And I didn't tell people I was going to say yes to everything. I didn't allow them to take advantage of me, but I said yes to everything. I almost lost one of my key employees. They came to me and they said, I really have to figure out how I can get to this amount of pay. And I normally would have said, we can't do that. We can't. And I said, yes, we can do that. Let's figure that out. And we came up with some really big goals, some really huge things that, yeah, if they could do that, we could definitely get them to that a level of pay. And they went and did it to my absolute shock, right? I had someone ask me to come speak in Guatemala at this tiny little conference, and I said yes. While I was there, though, a volcano went off. Half the conference weren't able even to get in, ended up being this tiny little thing. And then on paper, should have never gone. It was a complete waste of time. I met 18 of the most incredible people who have referred me into so many organizations and into so many keynotes. If I hadn't met those people, my trajectory in my career would have been totally different, right? Just by saying yes. So if you can find ways to say yes to your employees and everything as the first response, it changes everything about how people interact with you. And if you're having a little bit of trouble, maybe with saying it, practice at home, right? Start with your friends. Do it for an hour a day, do it for a whole day a week. It starts to become contagious. But we also want to start asking the question, what is working? What is good, right? I used to walk around the company saying I'm a problem solver. Unfortunately, that's inherently negative, right? I'm looking for problems all the time so I can step in and be Superman and save the day and I'm going to solve the problem. Instead of focusing on what's working, who's doing an awesome job for us? Why are these two salespeople killing it, right? What are they doing? I want to understand that and have them share what they're doing with the rest of the team. Instead of, why are these two salespeople missing their quota? Why are they not hitting their mark, right? No, what are the two people doing well? So it's really, really important that we think about saying yes. This is a part of the positive leadership, that positivity pillar I talked about at the beginning. The next thing we can do is to help our leaders be more emotionally intelligent. And I would say this is probably one of the things that has come up the most in people going remote work and hybrid work, to say, how do I keep the culture going? How do I know how my people are doing? How do I keep this up? And unfortunately, they resorted to suddenly having 1 million one-on-one meetings, which doesn't work, okay? What we need to do is figure out how to reinstall, and you can do this in any kind of meeting, whether you're in person or not, but I find it works extremely well for remote meetings. In a traditional meeting, we're all sitting in the office. If someone has their arms crossed, their legs crossed, they're staring at the ground, they're on their phone, we know they're not engaged with what's happening, right, in that meeting. But when we're sitting in front of a Zoom, we look a bit more engaged than maybe we might be. And so it's kind of a little bit hard to tell where people are at. So what we do is we do this bonding exercise with our team on any 30-minute meeting or more, 30 minutes or more meeting, once per day max for a person. We go around the room and ask everyone, how are you showing up? And this tends to be about them as the person. So I'm doing great. I just got a new puppy. I haven't really slept the last few days. I'm running around picking up, accidents all day, or I have a brand new baby. I haven't slept in 5 days. I just found out my grandmother passed away this morning, and I'm gonna have to maybe fly to Memphis to go whatever. I mean, it's like, oh, wow, right? So you get these incredible comments from people, and you can very quickly, as a group and as the manager, figure out where you need to help them. Who's doing awesome that maybe could keep doing more awesome. And geez, if someone's grandmother just passed away, why are you on this meeting? You can go, we'll fill you in later. Maybe we'll cancel this meeting and we'll reconvene when you come back, right? Like, it's an incredible opportunity for someone to show someone compassion, right? And to say, or even to stop them being, hey, let's talk and how can we support you? What do you need, right? We don't need to talk about this metric or this program or whatever. Let's talk about you right now, right? And this gives the leaders that cue that it's time to do something different. Okay. Or I could have a struggling employee or whatever it may be. At the end of the meeting, we go around the room and say, how are you all leaving? And I find this is a bit more about them as the employee, as the meeting participant. I'm feeling great. I love the solutions we came up with. Or I don't think the client's going to go for this. I'm really anxious about even presenting this, right? Or I feel like we need to meet 3 more times. We do not have this figured out. We are not ready for prime time here, guys. And I realized very quickly that I was not having the same meeting everyone else was having. When we started saying this, we started talking about how we were leaving. It was not the same meeting. I thought everything was great. Thought we had a solution. And oh, geez, these 2 people are really nervous about the solution. Okay, how do we deal with that? How do we help them? Do they need more information? Do I need to think about changing the direction? We need to figure that out. And the most important part of this exercise is that leaders need to go last. The more senior you are, the later in the process you need to go. So if I show up as a CEO and say, I'm so happy, this is the best day ever, and you're like, your grandma just passed away, you're probably not going to say anything because you don't want to break that mood. If they're like, I'm awesome, the next person says they're awesome too, and these are like the senior leaders going first because they tend to, you're not going to get the expected outcome. So let your people go first. And if they have something big going on, you don't even share. No one cares. I hate to say it. They don't care if you're upset or you got something going on in your life. If they're struggling, that's what you focus on first. You're going to have to get your empathy from somewhere else, right? Now, if everyone else is cool, then maybe that's an opportunity for you to share and be vulnerable with them about what's going on with them. That's okay. But you got to put them first.